Hello and welcome back to the Lapdown Pod with your two favourite Formula One experts, myself, Dan, and Alex Berry. Good day to you. Alex, how are you?
You've said experts there. That's the word you've led off with. You
I
led off
did.
with experts.
I did. Well, the thing is when you get into these nosebleed kind of territories of 30 to 40 listens per episode, I mean...
There's some weight going on there. But I'm well. I'm well. We're back on camera, which is exciting because I'm now in a house that has flooring in every room, and the rooms are actually starting to look like they are inhabitable, and we've got the PC and everything set up again. So we're almost good to go. We've taken some time over the summer break, like the teams, to reset and refuel, and then we're off and away. But we've got something a little bit different this week because there's not been a huge amount go on, really. I think Merck are getting pretty close to signing Antonelli, and we might be racing in Rwanda. But apart from that, that's sort of the news for the week. So we're going to do a little report card special. We're going to pass some expert, to use Dan's term, some expert judgment on where our 20 drivers are at this year. For the Ollie Behrman fans, we won't be including him, but he did quite well. So well done, Oliver. But you're not actually a proper driver yet, so you don't get a report card.
Next year, though.
Next year.
I tell you
I'm going to be all in on Team Behrman, by the way.
Oh,
he's coming into my group.
I'm okay with that. I can. He's someone that I can get behind. I mean, I don't necessarily know whether he will be doing anything in a Haas, but it'll be great that he will be there. Full stop.
Yeah.
Also, great to see that the Rwandan government are spending the Conservatives' money in a very sensible way. I can't believe I've not been to Rwanda. No. I don't know what the capital of Rwanda is.
Nope.
I couldn't really. I could pick you a continent, but I think I'd struggle to kind of pin the bit where Rwanda is. But I can't imagine the glitzy world of Formula One are going to be backing flying over to Central Africa.
I don't see a Rwandan Grand Prix before a South African Grand Prix.
No.
Put it that way.
No.
I think there's some other places that we might go first. But hey, good on them for trying. Good on them for trying.
Not? Why not? And as I say, with all that money
ring.
that they've obviously been thrown, put it to something good, and Formula One is good. And again, it'd be nice just to get Antonelli sorted, and then I think we're pretty much done, aren't we, with who's going to be where next year?
Yeah, near enough. Now that Perez is locked in.
Space? Oh no, Doohan's done, isn't he? Is he done or not yet?
No, I don't think Doohan's done, but I think Doohan might as well be done.
Yeah.
And I don't think Danny Rick is done, but Danny Rick, I think
get on
is.
with
Well,
it,
it's going to be Danny Rick or Liam Lawson, isn't it? Which I guess depends how much Danny Rick does in the back half of the year.
Pretty much. Get on with it.
It's one of those
Get
two.
on with it. Would you...
Right, so, format here.
Yes.
We're going to give everybody a classic report card grading, which I've sort of gut feeled them. I didn't necessarily have a marking criteria. I kind of... that.
But when we're experts on the topic, AB, we don't need to provide any kind of backing or information about these things because everybody just goes, these two are experts.
Yeah.
We'll go with their gut feels.
Pundits can punt. So, we'll give it a go. Right, kick us off then, Dan Jads. You can get us going on the current reigning World Drivers' Champion, Maxwell Verstappen.
Yeah, I'll go with Max. Do you know what? This one's just quite a serious reasoning why, but I've given him the letter B.
Ooh.
And the reasons for why is I've kind of gone on here and said, like, I think the parents probably do need to address the late night situation. And he has, on occasion, turned up to school on a Saturday and a Sunday, pretty tired, pretty cranky. And it's starting to affect performances a little bit. It might not be like 100%, but I think that's something that does need to be nailed down. And I believe they have actually kind of spoken to him about that, whether he'll do it or not, or whether he'll just kind of make sure that the lights go on and off as and when he sees the parents come up and down the stairs or not. We'll cross that bridge. But that all being said, he has not got the fastest car on the grid this year. He did probably at the start of the season.
Yeah.
But it's gone. But even now, he's still showing his skill. I was going to say class as a racing driver, but I've changed it. His skill as a racing driver. And he's still sat at the top of the table. And he probably will be he will have another world championship to his name come December, whenever this championship finishes.
Yeah, I think it's hard to argue. I've let him have a letter A. It's an A-. I've been plussing and minusing throughout, by the way, because I'm indecisive. He's on an A- because I think it's hard not to give the bloke leading the World Drivers' Championship again and has won, 7 or 8 races this year, an A. He's not been perfect, and I think he is starting to show signs of mortality in his reign. Now that, as you say, the car, I don't think it's the fastest car anymore, flat out. And it means he's actually having to try. And when you try, things can happen, can't they? So, yeah, he's on an A-. It's hard to say he's done anything other than a very, very good job. But he's not been an A+ flawless like he was last year. And the sort of the trend, based on current trends, he's heading down towards your B territory for me. But for the time being, he can stay an A boy.
Yeah, I couldn't be asked with decimal points, so I just went 4 letters. Would you like to kick us off, or kick yourself off on your side with our favourite Formula One racing driver on the grid, Sergio Perez?
Yeah, we'll go Sergio. Look, the easy scorecard mark, right? The easy report card to give Sergio Perez this year would be an F, wouldn't it? That's the easy. That, if anything, feels a little cliche, right? So I'm not going to give him an F. I've given him an F+. He's got an F+ from me to Sergio. I made some notes before this, and I've written down, as you did, a sentence or two on a couple of drivers. I've written one word for Sergio. I've just written disgraceful. He's got a plus from me because he's 7th in the Drivers' Championship, and he has at times finished in the points. Every reason that Max has been an A, Sergio is the opposite of that. We've gone through this at length. It's nauseating to me that he's keeping his seat for next year in the ways that he's keeping it. But look, I thought I'd toss him a bone and give him a plus. I think he got a podium at some point, didn't he? That's worthy of
No,
an
he
F+.
started the season really well, mate. I think he got 3 seconds out of the first 4 races.
Well, in that case,
he started really well. I mean, the points that I put here, I said he nearly got relegated to the special education team.
Yes.
I do feel there may have been a little bit of gaslighting there from the cool kids at Red Bull to kind of keep him on his toes. However, with the fact that he's backed by the Mexican cartel, he's definitely got to be, because I don't really want to be assassinated.
Fair.
Done.
Fair. That feels overwhelmingly generous. Yeah. And I would like to know who is just waiting outside the door behind you.
It's an F. He's stunk the house out, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has, yeah.
Sir Lewis Hamilton.
Sir Lewis Hamilton.
So I have given Sir Lewis Hamilton a B. And I feel there could be a little bit of recency bias involved in that.
First line of my notes, we need to be mindful of recency bias.
And I have caveated it because I have said he's basically stolen George's homework in Belgium. But I did also, and I've kind of tried to go for a bit of a primary school kind of report card feel here.
Yeah.
It does feel that having been cheated in the beanbag race at Sports Day back in 2021, it just feels like he's starting to get his mojo back again. For the last, 4-5 rounds, it just feels like we're starting to see Lewis Hamilton of old come back. Still don't know what that move to Ferrari is going to be like next year for him, whether that's more nostalgia and whether he'd look back at this Mercedes and go, oh shit, have I made the wrong move there? And I've asked to switch sets when I shouldn't have done. But I've given him a B.
Yeah, I mean, the switch was never performance related, was it? The switch was, I don't think Mercedes wanted to give him 2 years and he wanted 2 minimum. And then, Ferrari promised him the world and foundation and ambassador and all that. Yeah. I mean, he looked objectively awful in the first half of the year. He looked, we talked about it on here, he looked quite disinterested to me. It didn't look to me like he was actually that bothered and he was just running out the clock. Fair play to him for turning that around with not only just strong performances, but, race win. So, Good from you, Lewis. I've given him a B-. I've gone slightly harsher than you, but it's possible we might have given him the same. I've just gone to 1 extra decimal place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that recency bias is a big thing, because if you just took the last 4 or 5 rounds, actually he's looked really strong, but then against solid Mercedes. But if you take the first 4 or 5 rounds of the year, neither of those things were true. But I think he's showing his class as a driver, and to an extent was maybe showing his class as a driver even in that dodgy start to the year, not quite so much, and I think his head definitely wasn't in it, but I mean, the bloke knows how to drive a car, doesn't he?
He knows his way around.
The bloke knows how to drive a car. Yeah. His teammate, George Russell, now, he's got an A- from me. He's outranked Lewis Hamilton.
Okay.
Because I think he's just been a little bit more consistently impressive through both halves of their start to the year. I think George Russell rode the wave a little bit more of that first half of the year when things weren't quite going so great, even if it was just at a PR level, an emotional level, an attitude level. He, sort of got on with it a little bit more, and it looked a little bit more maybe like he was sort of, actually, you know what? No, I'm going to try and outdrive this car. And yes, the car, Lewis, we know the car is shit, but I'm just going to, get on and drive it. I think he has looked really mature this year as a driver, George Russell. I think he's probably auditioning for that role. If they are going to bring the 12-year-old Italian in next year, he's going to have to be mature and be that senior driver. But I think through the first half of the year, looked like he was actually the senior driver, number one driver in that team. Arguably, it's maybe flipped in. I know he's won and then briefly won and then didn't win a couple of races recently, but I think he outdrove Hamilton to start with, and then if nothing else, they've leveled up again. So we can have an A- from me.
Fair enough. I've given him the same mark.
Yeah.
No, not an A-. I've given him a B.
Yeah.
I mean, he's I agree with everything you've said. And I don't necessarily think the two other races that he could have won, i.e. Silverstone and Belgium, were his fault. Yes, I think the fact that he stayed out was a masterstroke, but equally I suspect that probably had an impact then on the car being underweight by the time it actually finished. But not that I would expect George to know that whilst he's driving at like 200 mile an hour and then suddenly go, oh shit, what about that 1 gram that I'm going to be underweight? So I've given him a B as well. Because ultimately, yes, I agree with everything said, but he's 34 points behind Lewis at the moment.
He is.
Which could change because we've got some more races to come. But that's where I am. Charles Leclerc.
Where are we going next?
Charles. The star boy. The one that he just can't really put a foot wrong, can he?
Puppy boy.
Star boy Leclerc. Yeah, he's got a
puppy
dog.
of the paddock.
Actually, interestingly, I saw Lando posting some pictures with dogs the other day.
They went to Battersea, which is just the best crossover the Battersea's ever done.
Yeah. Lando saw that. He saw Roscoe. He saw whatever puppy Leclerc's called and thought, I need some of that PR in my life. I'm going to go to the
But I don't want the costs and responsibility of dog ownership, but I do want the Instagram photos.
I don't want to pick up the poo.
No.
But take a few photos.
I dare say Battersea made some money out of it, though. I think there's a few people that see Lando Norris cuddling a puppy at Battersea and goes, yeah, okay, I'll give him a donation.
Yeah, I'll send you a $5. Anyway, I've given Charles Leclerc a B. He's third in the Drivers' Title Championship even. He won his home race. As I said, he can't really put a step wrong. I think he could drive into the side of somebody and everybody would turn around and go, it's only Charles, though. And I am looking forward to seeing what happens in 2025 when he gets his kind of cool older brother to hang out with him for Ferrari. So, yeah, B.
I've beat him up as well. I'm going to be honest with you. Over the last few races, I kind of forgot he existed. Because he's just sort of trundled along, isn't he? He's not really, since Monaco, been the headline boy. He's not put his face out there for anything but buying a dog, realistically.
I was going to say, did we mention that he's got a dog?
Yeah, that's literally, I think, since that Monaco win. I know he's had a little bit of bad luck and whatever go against him, but it was almost a surprise to me to see that he was third in the Drivers' Championship. But I think it's because he just keeps getting fourth and fifth, and no one remembers who finished fourth and fifth, and those points add up pretty quickly. So, good, just tidy from him. I'm going to be a contrarian again, though, as we move to Carlos Sainz.
Ooh.
Because where I go Charles a B, I've given Carlos a B+. I've plussed him.
Wow.
I've plussed the
Plussed
Carlos.
him.
I've plussed him. Again, very similarly, he's gone about his business. We've heard a lot more about Carlos Sainz because of his contract situation, so he's kept his name around there a little bit more. But I think he has consistently shown his quality, and I think the reason almost that I've plussed him, yes, he is 2 places behind in the Drivers' Championship, but the reason I've plussed him, how many articles and social posts and stuff have you seen from people going, Ferrari got rid of the wrong guy here? No, they haven't, objectively. But the fact that he is generating those conversations with his driving, to me, is worthy of merit. No, it hasn't necessarily translated into more points, but if you are at a very superficial level making people question whether Ferrari should be dropping Charles Leclerc, you're having a good year. And I think if Charles going a little bit incognito, I think the fact that Carlos has done that, I mean, those two things might be related. It might be that Charles is incognito is the reason that he's getting that. But yeah, have a plus from me, Carlos.
Nice. Oh, see, I downgraded him. I put him at a C. And I kind of feel like he's been recovering all year from a bit of a high school breakup, hasn't he? Because Carlos Sainz, like, he got dumped early, and I think
he also lost part of his body physically.
Yeah, and I mean, he started the year, I think, with a bit of spunk about him, and he was like, "I'm going to prove everybody wrong. You shouldn't have got rid of me. You shouldn't have got rid of me for Lewis. I'm going to show you." But then I think, and understandably so, he's been distracted for probably the last month. I think it's coincided with the fact that Ferrari's got not slower, but cars around the Ferrari have got quicker. And I think those two have dovetailed really nicely with one another to reflect on Carlos's position over the last couple of weeks. But the fact now that he's got that seat sorted for 2025 and there's no more kind of, is he going to go to Williams? Is he going to go to Audi? What's he going to do? Now that that's done, I hope that we go back to see that Carlos at the start of the year, knowing the fact that he goes, right, well, I'm going to be here next year. I'm not going to be with Ferrari, but let's go back to proving people wrong, and let's have more of these conversations about you've got rid of the wrong bloke.
Yeah, just the final point that I'll make on that, actually, I think Williams presents a really nice opportunity to do that, because it takes a little bit of the pressure off of winning in podiums. They're not achievable for what we know for 25, unless James Vowles has played an absolute worldie. Nobody expects the Williams in the top 6, the top 8. A P10 in a Williams and a point is excellent. So he's almost lowered his own bar, but made it easier for him to set a world record over that bar by looking incredible. If he can trounce Alex Albon, who everyone has universally said has done incredibly well in that Williams, then he looks like an absolute rock star.
Absolutely.
So,
and that conversation about sacking the wrong bloke continues, doesn't it?
Yeah.
McLaren, similar to your well, it's not Lego, is it? It's more of a
No, it is Lego.
Oh, it is. Is it a real one?
Yeah, I put that together. It's like 1,400 pieces or something.
Well, it's probably 1,400 quid as well. Anyway,
I put that together piece by piece.
Well done, you. Lando Norris.
Yeah.
He is, I guess, technically the number one driver in the side, so we'll start there. And I've given Lando a B. And the big reason for that is the fact that he doesn't really turn up until the second lesson of the day, does he? He starts he gets to where he should be, and then just kind of forgets how to get his car off the line. And really and truly, I think he should be putting so much more pressure on Max on the back of the last month and a half worth of Grand Prix. And he should have won considerably more races than what he's done in his career so far. That's not to say that he hasn't done incredibly well. He has done very well, and I think it's been a bit of a surprise that McLaren have kind of got themselves to where they are. But yeah, instead of sitting outside the gates with a monster and an elf bar, Lando, get in there and get off the line, mate.
He's fingering someone on the way in. That's little Lando Norris he's behind a wall, getting noshed off between English and geography. I've given him a B- for almost exactly the same reasons. I mean, the dude is second in the Drivers' Championship, and yet it feels like that's too low for potentially the car they have now and some of the performances he's put in. He's just a little bit rough around the edges still, isn't he? And I think it's maybe because the progress of that McLaren has maybe been a little bit quick in the sense that he's gone from, wow, P4, great day. Like, how good's that? We've got P4. You can get P4 with some, creasy errors. I don't even think McLaren necessarily expected to suddenly be the fastest car by like 0.2. So he's not had a chance to get the iron out, let the iron warm up, and to iron those creases out. I didn't go too deep into the actual numbers in it. I did see a couple of bits of research from people that Lando's race starts, which everyone relatively rightfully critiques, aren't actually within the scope of the field, not actually that bad. And his reaction times are quite often a couple of tenths better. Or not tenths, a couple of thousandths better, or whatever it is that they measure it in. But you're up against people that are flawless on their starts, which is what I think is killing him. I think his starts within the grand scope of the pool are acceptable, but if you're on pole, you're in a weird way already up against it, because you are, as Martin Brundle likes to say, dragging 19 other cars with you. So you have to be 10% better to account for the 10% bonus you're giving everybody else. And he's just not quite there yet. But bloody exciting. So he's on a B- from me just because I think he is so close, and I do genuinely, I'm really looking forward to the back half of this year because we definitely have a Constructors' Championship fight on. That's a proper scrap, ding ding. But you've also got sort of Lando's theme song playing quite quietly in the WWE arena. He's not fighting Max yet for a driver's, but one engine blow up for Max and a 0-point weekend, or dipping a tire in the gravel fighting with someone and he can't catch it and he's in the wall and he's no points and Lando wins. That's a 35-point swing or something like that?
Yeah. And it does feel that Lando could go win for 3 or 4 weeks in a row.
100%.
So, yeah.
And as we get to some of these tracks as well, where overtaking is not as easy, and if he can keep putting it on pole, and we get to these tracks where, pole is king, I tell you, get him up. Here we go. Oscar Piastri, what an incredible human being. He's never going to find anyone better. A++. No. He's got a B+ from me. I've outranked him on Lando there. Which, look, he's Australian, so there's an element of small amount of bias in there. But I do genuinely think if we're grading them on both hard and fast facts, but also a little bit of gut and a little bit of weighting to their marks, he has been incredibly impressive this year. And I think people quite quickly forget how new to Formula One he actually is. He's not rookie territory, but he is still, new in. And I think the fact that he's making people forget that speaks volumes. He's now ticking off achievements of race wins and sprint wins and poles and all the rest of it. And I just think he's really impressive. I think his attitude is very strong. I think the way he handles himself is very good. And I think if you're, Oscar Piastri in your second or third year of Formula One, and you are fighting Lando Norris, on the top steps of the podium, he is maybe outperforming expectations, and Lando's doing the slight opposite, which is where they're both a B, but they're at different ends of that B for me.
I don't disagree with anything you just said, and for every reason that you just said, I gave Oscar Piastri an A.
Ooh.
Because I think pound for pound, Lando is the better driver, but I think Oscar is outperforming Lando in this championship so far. Caveat it obviously with the fact that Lando's in second and Oscar's in fourth, but I do just think, again, similar to what we said about George, with a little bit of luck the other way around, I think it would be just as likely we'd be talking about Oscar at that top kind of chase rather than Lando. And obviously Oscar's mum's head of the PTA as well, so we kind of got to give him a
She's lovely, by the way. Great fun.
Absolutely.
What a lady.
That's the kind of as a kind of a professional athlete, that's the kind of parent that you want in the corner.
Yeah.
Not kind of a helicopter one that's going to tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing. Just someone that's there for the vibes.
In a weird way, not like, and I'm sure that Adam Norris is an incredibly nice man and would be lovely to have dinner with and is a wonderful human and father. But a little bit like Behrman's dad, although he was a little bit funny because he was getting all nervous about it, they stood straight-faced at the back of the garage, didn't say anything, wearing their grey polo shirt and their black trousers, and that was it. And you've got Oscar's mum going on a podcast in Yuki Tsunoda merch and like adopting drivers, and what a family. What a family. And the fact, by the way, without wanting to bring the tone down here, I know we already talked about fingering before, so we're probably past that.
I was going to say, well, you mentioned about lowering bars, and I think you've done it twice now, so yeah, carry on.
I don't know where the interview was, but the fact that Oscar's gone and done an interview about like, how did you celebrate your first race win? He's like, I went for a Macca's and then had a cuddle with my girlfriend. I'm like, did you, Oscar? Right, you had a real... You just held hands for a bit, did you? Had a nice little cuddle on the sofa watching EastEnders. You dirty dog. Right, there you go. Oscar Piastri, B+. Maybe an A for the cuddle. Who knows? I don't know what his cuddle performance is like.
Well summed up. I think we're going to go Aston Martin next. And I do feel like this whole report card thing probably just speeds up from this stage.
I also think where we've been largely working in letters that are A and B related, I think some of the letters, we might see some new letters in a minute.
We might do. And I'm going to start with Fernando Alonso, and I'm going to start by giving him a D.
Oh,
And but the entire team, you mentioned that Charles Leclerc had been kind of forgettable for the last couple of weeks. I mean, this entire team has been forgettable for pretty much the entire season. It feels like they're putting all their eggs in the Adrian Newey basket. And I mean, if he doesn't turn up for school next year, I just don't see Fernando Alonso being particularly interested by anything going forward. So, yeah, there you go. There's a quick summary of Fernando Alonso for me and his D.
So I've given him a C on...
Just because you're a nicer guy.
I'm a lovely guy. We're not. We've got some other drivers to talk about. But there were enough times during the year where I was looking at his name on the timing chart, either in a quali or in a race, and going, what's Fernando up to? It didn't always eventuate, and I think part of that is he is probably pushing the car that they have at the minute to the absolute maximum that he can get out of it. But I do keep expecting more from him. And where over the past couple of years, you've looked at Fernando and then Fernando has, actually done what you were sort of maybe looking at his name on that timing chart for, there's maybe a lot of unfulfilled potential at the minute on Fernando. But I do agree that I think unless he will get bored. I mean, you've really got to look at the amount of TikTok content that he's making with their Aussie media bloke. Like, the bloke is finding other things to do to occupy his mind on these race weekends, because I don't think he's having to put a huge amount of thought into racing. We're not quite in El Plan, Nando on the podium at, Bahrain, and, that start to the year we had. So, and then Lance Stroll is also in the sport somehow. I've given him a D. Just what does he offer, Dan? What does Lance Stroll offer to me in the sport? He is like really cheap chocolate ice cream, right? So it's icy, there's no substance to it, it's not like delicious, no one really wants it. Would I rather have cheap chocolate ice cream than no ice cream? Yes, probably, because it's still ice cream and it's better than, having an apple. But I'm not going to enjoy it, and I'm not going to get to the end to it and then be like, yes, high five to that tub of shit chocolate ice cream.
Yeah, I gave him an E.
Ooh.
Do you know, I said Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso have been kind of forgettable all year. Like, Lance has been so unforgettable all year. He's not really even, like, in previous seasons, he's caused a bit of chaos, hasn't he?
Yeah,
like,
he's not memed himself this year, has he?
He's crashed into people. He's come over the radio, like, shouting and moaning at things after he's fucked up doing something else, and all this other just general Lance Stroll kind of spoilt kid shit that he gets up to. He hasn't even done any of that. Similar to what you just said, he's offered me absolutely nothing. I knew I was never going to get performance from Lance Stroll. I knew that. I wasn't getting swept up with a Lance Stroll performance card. However, just give me something. Yeah. Like, if you're going to be there, like, just do so. Come over the radio and call your Jackman shit because you overshot your pit box. Like, do something.
Yeah. Yep. No, 100%.
Pointless. VCARB. VCARB I've got next. And obviously Daniel Ricciardo is I think anyway, although he could be forgiven, but the number one driver at VCARB. I don't really know how that entire family actually works. But I've put down here to say that he's easily distracted. He often gets the promise to hang out with the cool kids, but is left with the non-sporty children on the other lunch table. Mm-hmm. And for that, I've given him a D because I just don't feel there's a life. I don't feel there's a world that Daniel Ricciardo just operates around in the bottom set, to be honest with you. Like, it's either Daniel Ricciardo at the top table or Daniel Ricciardo just isn't there at all. I don't think his heart's in it. And I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced how interested he's going to be coming back for this second half of the season, now knowing that obviously the Mexican cartel are backing Sergio Perez and that door is well and truly like bolted shut.
See, I've beat him. Okay. I've beat him because I think both he and Yuki, and this is a slight spoiler, but he and Yuki are both doing better than people would expect a car named after a credit card to do. Like, they are, with reasonable consistency, fighting for those lower point places, and if not for some genuinely woeful strategy at times, managing to do that. And they have probably both been robbed of some points by their own team decisions outside of that cockpit. I actually think the opposite, that he is actually set up for a really strong second half. Because he seems to be happier in that car now. They obviously changed the chassis, whether or not that's a mental thing or an actual thing or whatever. They did that, a ways back, and since then he's been on the up and up. Is there a freeing element of knowing that every move I make now absolutely matters, as where he can just go, okay, let's fuck shit up and let's, we'll see what happens. But he's been fun to watch, and he has been very happy and smiley in recent races, which is nice to see. I think a lot of that happy smiley was he'd probably been given the nod, and then that nod got unnodded. But I've been happy enough, and I think he has done a decent job with the hardware and strategy available to him, as has Yuki. So Yuki's 11th in the standings, Danny's 12th. They're sort of a race position between them near enough. I've given Yuki a B as well, because I think he's doing exactly the same thing. I think he's showing what he can do as a driver. I think he is getting as much out of that V-carb as often as possible. Him and Ricardo have had similar problems with strategy or little errors that cost them, or one moment at the start of the race and they drop back 4 positions or a penalty or whatever. And I think Yuki's shown that he is a good driver. I think his temperament, if we ignore Bahrain, where he tried to dive bomb his own teammate after the race, has improved. It's a B.
Yeah, I've given him a B as well for the same reasons. I think I would prefer to see more of Bahrain Yuki Tsunoda. I feel there's just a little bit of extra. Just give me a bit of character. And I quite like that. Yes, okay, fine. He probably shouldn't have done it, but he probably equally didn't need the public dressing down that he got from his teammate and got kind of made to feel like a bit of a naughty kid. So, B for me, because I think he's done pretty well in a pretty ordinary piece of equipment. I don't really know which way round these final 4 teams go. It always feels like Williams are last, so we'll stick them at the end. But Haas I've got next, and I've got Nico Hulkenberg, where I've given him a B. And I've kind of given him the analogy here that kind of turns up for maths with a dictionary and then still gets some of the answers right. Has no kind of real right to do as well as what he has done in that car, because he just is not being given the right piece of equipment to do anything. So he's either incredibly lucky and he's just guessing some of the answers to these questions and just going, oh, happy days. I got 6 out of 10 this week, Mum. How'd you do that then? Well, I don't know. I just kind of multiple choiced it and just went AC/DC down the questions and got it right. Or he's very skilled. And I think that's probably more likely to be the answer. Yeah. Could he have had a bigger and more prominent history in Formula One had he not have been like at Force India and Renault and these kind of mid-pack, mid to bottom tier teams? I don't know. But yeah, it's a B for Mr. Hulkenberg.
I've given him an A.
Ooh, go on.
Because again, it's a little bit like Oscar outranking Lando for me, in that it's a little bit of potential driven, but also he has objectively delivered, worlds away results from Magnussen. But, the bloke has still clearly got it. And I think he just kind of goes about his business. And I don't think anyone's favourite driver is Nico Hulkenberg. I don't know how much merch they're selling of him, but he is a very just tidy, ongoing performer.
Maybe in his hometown.
Perhaps. You'd hope. But I just think he's been consistently surprising, which I understand is an oxymoron, but he has just been consistently surprising, and he keeps popping himself up where he doesn't feel like he belongs. And as you say, to do that in a machine that's maybe not entirely brilliant for the task, fair play. I don't think he will have quite such a good year next year in the stake for a year before it becomes Audi, and then fingers crossed after that. But no, fair play, Hulk. This year you've impressed, and unfortunately, K-Mag's done the opposite for me. This is the biggest gap that I've got between 2 drivers, because I've got Kevin down at a D-, because he is being so aggressively outclassed by Hulkenberg in equal machinery, and it's not like we've seen at other teams where there's been, we've got a problem with that, chassis was wrong, or we've only got half upgrades on this car or that car. They have been, as far as I'm aware, driving the same car all year, and Kevin has driven it badly and angrily and dangerously, and to the point that he is essentially meme racing, or he might as well not have raced. Name me one race this year that didn't involve him getting a record number of penalties or just going wide, boy. Name me one other race you can say anything about Kevin Magnussen in this year.
I can only remember one race where Kevin Magnussen was spoken about, and that was Miami.
Yeah.
And for that measure, because I remember him doing something this season, I've given him one grade higher than Lance Stroll, and I've given him a D.
We're in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
There's much more to talk about on Magnussen, is there? That's
not really.
That's him.
I told you they'd get quicker.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just rattled through them at this point.
This one's going to be real quick, I'll tell you that much, because I'm going to suggest we move on to Alpine.
Yeah, why not?
You told me before we started, you briefly forgot was a team.
I did. So I kind of went through and I did my notes this morning, and I was kind of, without using the championship standings, I got to about 14 drivers, and I suddenly went to myself, oh shit, who else is left in there? And then had to go back to the drivers' standings, and then went, oh yeah, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon are people, aren't they? And that's when I kind of remembered that Alpine were a thing. And for a short moment, I did have to double check that the team was called Alpine, and it wasn't like something else now. It feels at the moment, I'll give Pierre Gasly an E. It kind of feels like a car that could end careers early at the moment, this Alpine thing. I know Esteban's got out, hasn't he, and he's going off somewhere else, but it just feels like a career that might span to 2030 for Pierre Gasly could be over in 2025 because the car's been so shit, and they as an ownership go, well, it might be the driver and nobody else wants him because he's not done anything else. And he's just turned up at the wrong place, isn't he? And he's stuck around hoping that things will fix themselves, and he's not been able to do that. So, yeah.
See, I've given them both C's because I'm not putting the blame on them. So I don't think that they've had a tool worthy... And I'm just combining Gasly and Ocon here because in my mind they're the same person. They've done exactly the same thing all the season. But could they have done much more with what they've had available? I don't think so. In that way, I can't give them a high mark because they're not outperforming the car, but they are turning up and they are, using the tools provided to them. Arguably, they're getting a little bit better. They have pulled some points out. I've written notes for Gasly that says meh, he's there, and then I've written Ocon equally meh. But what I will say, and this also applies, this applied to Kevin, and it's also going to apply to everyone else we talk about now. They're all behind a guy in the driver's standings that raced once this year on debut, and it was the first time he'd driven that car. There you go.
It's quite... firstly, I think I know the reason why, and the big reason is because Alpine aren't running that pink camo livery that they allegedly kind of said they were going to at the start of the year. And the other thing about them, it is genuinely quite amazing to see two fully fledged Grand Prix winners like dicking around in an absolute donkey of a car at the back of the grid.
Yeah.
Because they don't give these race wins away, do they?
No.
And these two, they've got two, but one each, and they're driving that piece of shit. So honestly, I think that McLaren behind you would go quick around some of those circuits.
It's functional.
Yeah, no, I genuinely think so. Right, Stake, Alpha, Tauri, Romeo, whatever the piss and heck this thing's called. I've got Valtteri Bottas as an E. I really like Valtteri. I think Valtteri's a great bloke, and I think he's probably one of the most underrated Formula One drivers in modern time. But you do have to begin to wonder why. And that's my comment about Valtteri Bottas in that car. I mean, yes, he's going to get paid for it, but surely, I mean, he's going to much rather be cycling around or taking nude photos of himself or drinking coffee. Maybe all three at the same time. Maybe he would want to ride naked through the streets of, well, maybe not through the streets, through the countryside of somewhere while sipping on a nice espresso. Yeah,
I've given him a D+. I don't know what he's done. I don't know how good he's doing because he's always out in Q1. As is Zhou, so it's not Bottas doing that. The car doesn't work. The car looks awful. The team is weird. I don't have a huge amount to judge him on. As you say, I really like Valtteri. He's been adopted as an honorary Australian through Tiffany, and he is very much embracing our values and culture. And I want to give him a Piastri bonus. Maybe I have given him the Piastri tax, and that's why I've got him on a D+ rather than your E. But I don't have anything else to say. I think it would be a shame if he wasn't in F1 next year. I don't think he's actually locked in anywhere at the minute. He deserves to be around. He is fundamentally a good driver. There are a number of other drivers on that grid that I would suggest he needs to be in the sport over. Yeah, I don't really have a huge amount to say, and it's the same with Zhou Guanyu. I've given him a D. He's been slightly less impressive than the completely absent Valtteri Bottas. I think that's as much on just a subconscious expectation from me that I, without looking at the results, probably think that Valtteri's always finished a spot or two higher than Zhou. I seem to see a lot more P19s in quali from Zhou than Valtteri, and Valtteri's maybe a lot of P15 action or P16 and just missing out and all that. What else is there to discuss with Zhou, really? I mean, seems a lovely lad. I'm sure he's bringing a lot of money in from China. Don't know if I can see him in the sport next year. He's not got a seat locked down, does he? And I don't think I can see him.
I think it'll depend as to how much money he can bring in. Chinese Grand Prix, all that other good stuff. It'd be a good bit of PR, wouldn't it? But I could see him staying there over Valtteri Bottas, just because of the funds that he would be available to bring in. But I agree with you. I mean, Valtteri is arguably better than a lot of people currently on the grid, and a lot of people that will be coming onto the grid as well. So, Williams. I think this one, at least for half of the Williams, there will be a bit more to talk about. But I tell you what, because I'm a great sport, I will get rid of Logan Sargent for you, and you can do Alex Albon. And for Logan Sargent, I've just put F, and I've just put this isn't for you.
Yeah. I mean, I've given him an E. I was slightly nicer because he is improving just ever so slightly, and I'm sure he's trying his best. So that's why I thought at least. I mean,
you've given him a participation point, mate.
Yeah, I have, but I just needed him to be better than Sergio Perez. So, as you know, on the grading scale, I just couldn't lump him with that. Meanwhile, actually, I think I said before it was my largest gap. This might be my largest gap. Alex Albon, I've given an A minus.
Good shout.
He's doing it all himself in that team. He is trying to, I'm sure, provide a little bit like when Danny Rick came into AlphaTauri at the time, and they said, he is delivering so much value to us with the other bits that he brings that you don't see, the setup stuff, the away from track stuff. I can't see anyone else but Alex Albon doing that at the minute for Williams. That's why I'm so excited for next year with Sainz in there, that they can have two people doing that, frees Alex Albon up a little bit. He is massively outdriving the state of that car at the minute. And I think he's actually been, for a bloke that I don't think has a point this year in the Drivers' Championship, I don't think he's actually managed to finish in the top 10.
Correct. Alex Albon has 4 points.
Oh, well done, Alex.
He has 2 ninth place finishes, one in Monaco and the other in Silverstone.
Oh, well done, Alexander. Fair play. I think he hasn't had a bad season, but it's tricky. The records of time won't necessarily show that, but I think he's done himself a decent service. Yeah,
I gave him a B, so we're essentially giving him the same mark there, aren't we? With obviously your decimals and my exclusion for pluses and minuses. Yeah, props to Albon. I think he's done really well. I think it's really exciting, the fact that he's going to have a teammate that hopefully, as you say, is going to be able to pull an equal amount of weight, and therefore hopefully make the life a little bit easier for Williams and provide just genuinely a bit more reward for that team that have worked really hard over the last couple of years. And yes, okay, fine. They might only be kicking around at the end of the season with 12 and 9 points respectively or whatever, but that's going to be a massive step forward than what they've got right now. So good on Alex Albon. I think don't know whether he's destined for higher things. I think that'll very much depend as to what Williams decide to do as a team. I can't see him going further up the tree, if that makes sense. I don't think he's going to get signed by anybody further up the pyramid. But yeah, hopefully there's good things. But that's been good fun. I've enjoyed that. I feel like we've provided some expert analysis.
I would say expert analysis has been provided by experts.
Yeah.
We do have, and we will have a relatively normal episode next week of just chatting as we started. I think we're halfway through the summer break now, aren't we? In terms of, I think we're at the end of the second week, of which there are 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So
yes.
we can start looking ahead now. coming out the other side of it. But we do have an email from Andrew that we will talk about next week, because there's some wider discussions there about Andretti and the expansion of the sport and all that sort of thing. But if you have something that you would like to talk about, or a point you'd like to raise, or if you would like to argue and counter any of our report cards from today, you can email lapdownpod@gmail.com, or you can pretty much search Lapdownpod on any social that you like, and I'm sure you'll find us on there. And you're welcome to send in anything: abuse, praise, questions, all of the above, corrections. Maybe we got something fundamentally wrong. If you'd like to watch Dan do other things on the internet, you can do that at
Dan Jads.
There you go. Look how
Simple.
smooth that. We're getting better at that. That was smooth.
Yeah, we're doing
wasn't
all
it?
right, aren't we? I mean, I'm not the biggest narcissist in the world. So, but yeah, come and find me. Come and watch some
find him.
cricket shit, and it's not bad.
Go find the guy. And if you want to watch me play games on the internet, you can. Hey, look, it's Alex on Twitch. Dan, thank you for hanging out, being an expert with me. And thank you to everybody for listening. And we will see you all next week. Goodbye.